welcome to You Are the Medicine. I am thrilled to be joined by an incredible woman this evening and her morning, as we are on very different sides of the universe at the moment. This incredible human being has created such a beautiful movement, the Living Brave movement. You may have heard of it. She has her own podcast. She coaches, she mentors, she's a healer. She's been moving into beautiful, sacred sensuality and relationship lately, and I'm very excited to talk about that. But she is a seven-figure coach inside of this booming industry at the moment, and a real inspiration in this Wounds to Wisdom to Wealth story. Shoshanna Raven, please give a big warm welcome to this beautiful lady who used to have raven hair but is now quite the blonde. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, what an intro. And first of all, it's so amazing that we get to meet. It's late for you. It's like you're one of the first things that I get to see and do this morning in Japan. It's all snowy outside, winter wonderland. And we were just having a chat about, okay, how do we even introduce you, or what do you desire from your introduction? And what I love about this new paradigm of business and leadership is like it's so fluid and formless. Like, of course there are certain things that we excel at, and we can play with our Instagram bios and have these curated bios of who we are and what we do. But the most fun thing about this journey has been the evolution of the journey, right? And that to be expressed and not explained all the time. Like, how about we just get to know each other in this podcast episode, and you decide, how you feel around me and how you see me to be, because all of my clients might say something different, like, oh, these are the codes that I really get from you. This is why I'm working with you. All these different dimensions of growth, and to see growth as a holistic thing. My brand and movement has always been about shame slaying, unapologetic self-expression, vulnerable leadership. What's on the other side of a brave leap of faith, like limitless potential. And so I love playing underneath that and all different topics, all different areas of growth, because really your business, your leadership grows within the context of your whole life. And so when you said moving into sacred sensuality and relating and dating and love, I find that my way of scaling has been bringing more and more and more and more and more and more of myself to the table. And the more integrated and full of a human I've become, that's how I've been able to lead and grow. And so helping my clients on that, okay, let's not just have this one-dimensional business where it's like step 1, 2, 3, but let's look at how we can really be thriving in all areas of life. And I find when I'm thriving in life, my business grows. When my relationship is suffering, it's sucking energy from my life's work. They're all related. And so we can't really look at one without looking at all. So that's the most fun thing, is just to have the permission to be the niche, to not have to niche down, to say what you do differently every single time someone asks you. It's fun.
I love it. I love it. It's just like, I am the expression. I am the expression. It's so gorgeous. So,
Yeah.
Shoshana, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for, you mentioned there, this shame slaying. Part of this conversation that we are having throughout this series is the idea that we have these wounds that are conditional as we're growing up, environmental, or part of, how we stumble or grow through life as we begin our life here, our earth journey. And if we are courageous enough to take those wounds and really be curious about them and see the diamond in them, there's wisdom in these wounds, and the courage to then embody that wisdom and to start sharing from that place, opens us up to these abundant streams of, relationships, wealth, harmonious health. There's so much that comes from our bravery. And I'd love it if we could start with little Shoshana and who she was and how her conditioning, her wounds, has built this incredible trajectory and this beautiful movement that we are all now, experiencing the ripple of. Who was she?
Yeah. What a beautiful series. I love this. I love you. I'm so happy you're doing this. I'm so excited to see the other people who are featured here and learn more about your story. When you were saying that, it's like the reason why I believe that our wounds carry so much potential, right? It's like the potential that lays on the other side of your brave leap of faith. What comes with bravery is walking with fear. Walking with this, like, it's like pure life force energy, like any leap of faith that's stretching you in a direction of who you're becoming. It's like, oh, it's gold, right? But first, unpacking what blocks us from that, which is shame, which is a false belief that I'm not enough, that if only they found out about me, that what if this gets used against me later, that you're kind of hiding something. And what we don't realize is that all of that hiding, even subconsciously, like I didn't even know how many stories are holding me back. That energy is sucking your life force. So that's why so many people are walking around like chronically tired. It's just like there's this lethargic energy. It's like there's so much shame. There's so many stories. There's so many, oh my gosh, what if I'm unlovable? What if I end up alone? What if they find out the truth about me? I'm not enough. That sometimes a situation arises that illuminates those stories and you're like, holy shit. And for me, that was genital herpes. It was like I was conditionally confidence. Consciously, I'm like, I'm confident, I'm thriving, I'm traveling the world. But truly, I passed down generationally from growing up. It was like, I have to be this certain person. I can't really show who I am. Like all of my flaws, my womanhood, my sexuality, all of that, like it's still shamed.
Yeah.
I'm still not in complete ownership with who I am and what I've been doing. And so, in having this genital herpes diagnosis, when I literally thought like I had a complete death, I was looking at old photos of myself, seeing a different person. It was like, well, that's the end.
Yeah.
That's the end of life for you. Like you had a good run. And it crushed me so hard that I really had to reconcile all of those years of spiritual bypassing, essentially. Like you're more than your mind and your body, and like good vibes only, and yoga. It was like, if this makes me feel like that, a common skin condition that 2 in 3 people have in this world, HSV1 or HSV2, then what do I really believe about myself?
Wow.
And that was it was like all this light shined on the darkness. And of course, I suppressed it and I bypassed it until it continued to rear itself. And I found myself in another low point. I had my first spiritual awakening, learning, okay, I'm more than my mind and my body. My identity is fluid. I am the unborn, undying self. And went on this big spiritual journey. And then the HSV just got me down again. And that's when, crying myself to sleep one night, shell of myself, seeking outside myself again. It was like, you're really in this place again. Okay, humbling moment. You have many rock bottoms in life, but you know exactly what to do. It was like this voice that was like, you can continue to do this, seeking outside of yourself, or you know exactly what to do. And you can rebuild your relationship with yourself. You can become your own best friend again. You can uncover all of the shame. And so that's when I started the vulnerability project of what do we do to transmute shame, to unlock all of that energy, those fragmented parts of self. Like there are parts of yourself that at one point when you were told you weren't enough, or this was, hide your sexuality and sensuality, or something was going to happen to you, got lodged in there.
Yeah.
And in uncovering it, it's like it can be painful, it can be really overwhelming, but that's your life force. And when you get it out of the darkness, which actually gives you power, it doesn't take power away from you. When you name these things, it's like all of this life force is there for genuine self-expression, for transmuting this energy into something powerful, like through the act of bravery, right? So all of this energy, all of this emotion gets unstuck. But that's first through exploring, what do I really believe about myself? What exists here? When did this get created? When was this part fragmented? And how can I reintegrate it by really exploring it, owning it, naming it, sharing it? And through the vulnerability project of before I even had my business or podcast, it's like, I know I'm going to do something big with my story. But before then, I've got to tell every single person, every single guy that I've had a crush on, that I've made out with at a festival, that I've dated, about genital herpes. Like, I had no idea what I was going to do with this, but I was like, I know that I need to do this. Like, I've got to build this muscle of vulnerability. It's how I met my partner, my ex-partner of 3 years. We reconnected after we went on a few dates, fizzled out. I was like, I need to tell you a story. Can we meet in person? We tried to meet in person. Anyone I could meet in person with, I did. We had a chat over the phone. I'm like, I have this vulnerable story. I want to practice sharing it. And I just shared, like, I'm really passionate about this. This is what happened. I want to make something with this. And he's like, oh my goodness, you're a badass. Like, let me help you build a website. The rest is history. We dated for 3 years. You know, I had people try to make out with me as I'm telling them the story. It completely, like, the only person that I had been dishonest with, I was about to throw up when I was about to tell him, like, oh my gosh, this person is going to be so angry at me, think I'm horrible. I met with, it makes so much sense that you didn't tell me. You know, we didn't really communicate. Here's all the things I'm sorry for. Let me hug you. I love you. And like, it was flipping my world upside down. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't want the list to end of all the people I could come up with to tell. It felt so good. I felt a
Wow.
vulnerability high. I felt true connection for the first time in my life. Like, I'm really bringing my full, real, true self. And in me, just sharing my heart, I give other people a gateway to do the same. And in that, we're truly connected. And so I couldn't not share my story, and not just my story, but what it represents. You know, what kind of power does a person have in the world where you have nothing to hide? It's like, you want to say something about me? Go listen to episode 4 of my podcast. It's right there. You know, like, that kind of power. It's just this raw power. And that's how I led in my podcast, Living Brave. And I had no freaking intention of having a business. I had no intention of coaching. I just thought this is going to be a podcast. I didn't need it to be a bestseller, a #1 podcast. People started sharing it. I was in love with it. I was in my DMs all the time. And that's when all of my writing jobs started to fall by the wayside. You know, I had my first retreat. I realized I can make a few $1,000s curating an amazing experience for people. Like, what? And things really started to just develop from there. Of course, I had to walk myself through a lot of bravery, imposter syndrome, fear, situations that I could have never foreseen that have been super challenging. But along the way, it's like, oh my gosh, I accidentally grew this multi 7-figure business, you know? And of course, there's an intention and strategy and visionary thinking, but so much of it is like, I'm so grateful that we started as just that wounds to wisdom, right? Just like, here's a map. Here's what I've walked myself through. And if this helps even just one person, how dare I not share this? That's what my platform is built off of. It's not how can I position myself so that someone says yes to a certain offer. And I feel that that framing really holds people back from their true connection and service to their work. That is the most magnetic thing. It's like, oh, this person's the real deal. Like, they would be talking about this whether or not anyone was listening. Of course I want to sign up. Not that, how can I position myself as an expert? That's like the opposite of how I started. And so always coming back to that energy has been what's been a match to the wealth, which has blown my freaking mind.
So much there. Oh my God. I mean, and I love that, because this is, and one of the reasons that, you know, I was really passionate about asking you to be part of this is that story is something that really highlights when you are truly in your vulnerability. And it is not easy to be vulnerable. You know, you mentioned there writing lists of people that you need to go as a young woman, you know, and share this with people, and people that potentially you haven't seen for a while, or, you know, they're not the people you want to be calling to tell them that sort of thing. And it's genuinely within those moments, like you said, shining a light on that shame, that dark, those parts of ourselves that we think will hold our power down, will actually allow our power to come out. I'd love it if you share with us, you know, a little bit about the icky moments. You know, it's great being open and seeing all of the beauty, the ripples that come from that vulnerability, the wonderful energy that gets to be exchanged. What about the moments, you know, can you share with us a moment where it was, this is really hard. This is actually, you know, maybe I can't,
Yes.
I'm finding it hard. Yeah, go on, share with us.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I often say is like the hardest part about bravery is before the action because you don't have any of the benefits of doing the thing,
Mm,
right? It's like actually what was harder, and this is something that we can know intellectually, but you need to learn through embodied experience, right? It's like holding all of that fear, holding all of that, what if people find out, holding, oh, I should do this, but I'm scared. That's the hardest part.
yeah.
Oh, should I work with this person? I don't know. Like for me, those have been agonizing moments. Once you do it, it's like, I can't believe that I hadn't done that before. You know, whether that's clicking the button to work with the mentor, or whether that's telling the person the thing that's been on your heart for a long time and just holding this heavy weight, or whether that's like, you know, taking the action, quitting the thing, leaving the underlying relationship. Oh, it frees you. It really does. And so through embodied experience, I've learned that not doing the thing, it's like the bravery, but without the benefits of true connection, your power on the other side of doing a courageous thing, building confidence, aligning and stretching into who you desire to become, all of these things. So it's like I never focus on what I'm giving up or the hard thing. I focus on what I'm going to get on the other side,
Mm,
right? It's like, what could this give me? Like I don't drink too much, but this is just a little example. I did dry January, and for me, the whole month, it's like if I focus on the energy of restriction or the energy of, oh my gosh, this is so hard, well, then what's the
it's gonna
point?
be
I don't
hard.
want to restrict myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to restrict myself. I'm over that, you know? But if I focus on, oh, how cool would this be? Like the clarity, the sharpness, like just and like what I get to have, you know, how I get to wake up, how I get to have my little mocktail, like everything that I get to receive, you know, I get to receive this like this thing I wanted to do for myself and how good that feels. And so that's really what like what's on the other side. Like, is there ever really a story where you don't learn from this? That's like when I made a huge, almost multi six figure investment in a mastermind, you know, and I was for me it was like, okay, this makes sense for my business, but yeah, I'm very scared. But just asking myself, like, gosh, can I just focus on? Is there even a story where this doesn't work out for me, where I'm not absolutely happy that I did this? Like, no, you know, what do I get? What do I benefit from on the other side of this? So for me, it's like building your dreams, building the potential, building the what if this works out better than I could have ever imagined more than the fear. Because when the dream is bigger than the fear, the dream wins, right? So you're always going to have fear. It's never about like, how do I get rid of imposter syndrome and fear? It's just, how do I breathe life into what's possible for me,
Mm,
into my potential, into my dreams? And that's what I do in my marketing too. Like, I want to speak to the legendary visionary self. And if that's bigger then the fear, you can walk with fear. You can just say, hey, fear, I got you. Like leadership is holding scarcity and abundance at the same time and choosing the abundant thought and action. It's holding the imposter syndrome and the I'm a badass. I give myself permission and I act like a big deal before they tell me I am and taking action aligned with that. It doesn't mean that you don't have these other parts of yourself at play. That's why doing the deep inner work every step of the way is very important. So for me, even that story I shared with you, the vulnerability project, it was like, okay, I'm going to tell all these guys that I've been on dates with, like I haven't been intimate with, right? But yet those are the people that I'm afraid are going to see me in a certain light. And so why don't I do that hard thing and find out in the process that I was in fact the one undervaluing myself, thinking that they only saw me as a girl that they used to date and I'm just
yeah.
the sex object or I'm just someone they actually wanted to be my friend. I was the one undervaluing them. Big plot twist. But the hard part was when I had been dishonest. And again, that's shadowy,
Mm,
right? Like if I'm rejecting a part of myself that was dishonest, essentially is what I'm doing. If I want to hide that, someone on stage saying like, here's all the things that I've done. You know, I remember I was listening to a speaker recently, like I left my kids for 10 years. I did this, I did this, I did this. In that moment, in that ownership of his mistakes, in that ownership of who he's been with no shame, but just here's where I am now, here's who I've been. I'm like, I love this person. I
yeah.
want to work with this person. I'm going to follow this person. It's a deep ownership of who I've been, you know? And it's easy to say, like, oh, I've been hiding the secret. I didn't tell anyone, but I lied to you.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you still have shame around the part that lied, you know, bringing dignity to that part of you that was dishonest, bringing dignity and forgiveness to the parts of you that you're still hiding that exist pieces of your story. You know, that's the hardest part. So when I drove to this person's house, I remember exactly what I was wearing. I was blasting the song Rising Up Alicia, Resilient by Rising Up Alicia. I had my eternal necklace on, like my windows down, driving to Boulder, pulled up to his house. My hands are on my head. I'm like totally not being myself, like turned around. He's like, do you want to go outside? I'm like, no, we got to sit here on the couch. I've got to tell you something. And I just had to, you know, it was like, it was at this point, it was taking so much energy, so much life force not to tell this person. It's like, you know what? What if he thinks I'm the scum of the earth? Do I think I'm the scum of the earth?
Yeah.
Because right now, anyone could look at me in the eye and say, that's disgusting that you have genital herpes and that you share this with the world. Who do you think you are? You're trying to get attention. Blah, blah. And I'm so clear that this is a mundane fact about my sexual health. I'm so clear about my why and sharing it that I could just have compassion for the person sharing this to me. Right? Like I would just anything that triggers you and other people's response to is just showing wounds that still exist within you, right? So it's like, okay, can I get so confident in my story and such a place of integration in my shame that your response is not going to alter me in any way. That's when you know you're ready to be vulnerable online or with people in your lives. And I was actually at that place. So I was like, you know what? I'm ready to do this. And 9 times out of 10, the response is like better than you ever thought, more validating. You co-create something beautiful together.
Oh, there's so much there, isn't there? It's like there's, when you have a look at real life, this young girl, going out and being super vulnerable. And you mentioned those words, icky, scum of the earth. Young girls are very, all of us, but particularly your younger women are very open to that kind of self-flagellation, with social media and the way that we potentially have put our worth into other people's hands, and especially sexually. And so, although there's so many trajectories we could go with this, Shoshanna. I'm just seeing so many
Oh
different.
my gosh.
But it feels like not only did, the business start to take off from your vulnerability, from opening to that wisdom and starting to really embody this vulnerability, this openness, this pureness, this power that started to magnetize people towards you because they wanted that energy too. They wanted to feel that energy too. That they've started creating their own vulnerability projects from that too. And I kind of want you to take us on that journey of how you started coaching in the first place. So you've been in the podcast, you've shared with these people, your deepest, darkest secret. Here you go, have it. I've shared it all. What happened then for you to become this coach? And in such a short period of time, really open this trajectory of wealth for yourself and for your community.
Yeah. Ooh. So with the podcast, told you the writing job started falling away, and I had my first retreat. I was a yoga teacher for many years, and to be honest, I wanted to be a coach. There's a little seed that I had planted. It was like, ooh, I want to be a coach, like years before, and then I kind of just buried it. It was like coach. The word coach had this like, I don't want to be a coach, and like I don't know, kind of has in some circles a little bit of a stigma, right? For some interesting reason. Like, what are you, a life coach? And
I remember that one.
so, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, another life coach. Like, yeah, like, people have judgments basically. When they have judgments, they're just sharing their own fears on a silver platter for you. Like, I would never call myself that, and I would feel like a fraud if I said I was a life coach. And yet, it triggered my own fears. So this was in sharing the podcast and in losing the writing jobs and being kind of like universe sometimes like pushes you up against the wall. Like you're on the edge of the cliff, and then it's like doot 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 doot, drop this, drop this, drop this. You have to, and of course I didn't have to. And I had all of these thoughts, again, our shadow and our inner critic, and this like hero's journey within ourselves, there's always a force of resistance. And sometimes when you do so much personal development work, that force of resistance can be like nice. So that force of resistance was like, oh, but you could just be like a writer and a yoga teacher, and that you don't need so much more. It's like a very nice voice. And I almost like bought into that. I was like, yeah, but the truth is, I had a desire. Like I had a desire. We have one life for all we know in this body. Let's go find out. Let's go see how good it can get. Go see how much impact we can make. Let's go at least explore and stop creating the thing that we're afraid of, and avoidance of the thing, right? Like I'm so afraid of failure and disappointment, so let me just fail and disappoint myself.
Wow.
So I was like, like let's do it. And so I had my first like launch of my Living Brave 8-week coaching program. I just had no idea what I was doing. And I put it out there and I got so afraid. I went live. I pretended that I had to go. I was just like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm saying. I have to go. It was like the nighttime in Bali. I was like, oh, someone's calling my name. And it was a $0 launch flop. And that's when I was like, okay, I need community. I need support. I need help. I know that I have gifts to share. My podcast was growing. And growing by like, you guys, I had less than 2,000 followers on Instagram. Like this was not like it's growing with thousands of people listening. It was just like I'm getting feedback.
Yeah.
For me that was a big deal. Like people like it.
Yeah.
And some people are sharing it. And that's when I started getting my own mentorship and coaching. I was like, okay, this both feed in. I invested before I ever made a single dollar in my business in business leadership support. I had already invested for the first time in my first energetic leadership. It was like a brave leadership energetics program with one of my mentors, long time yoga teacher mentor, and then did business coaching. And then I just put both feet in. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start selling. I'm going to start building conversations with people. I'm really going to do this. Like sometimes we're doing the things, but there's an energy that's like commitment, mastery, consistency, and excellency that it's like sometimes people are like, but I'm doing the things, but it's like you're doing the things in your way. And it's like actually doing the things. That's when it was like both feet in. And I started sharing about my coaching offerings. I remember I did a interview in someone else's Facebook group. There were 7 people live. I was really showed up as if this was like $1,000 paid program, and I made sure like, if you want to connect with me and you want the notes from the session, you want another training, send me a message, give me your email. Like 2 or 3 of those people became private clients. It was like I was really invested in building relationships from the beginning. Like I've been relationship focused from the beginning, not just big broadcasts, try to go viral. It was like I have a relatively still small community based on our numbers and based on the energy I feel of the Living Brave community that's continued to grow, but it's really been about long-term relationships and connection with people. So that's when I started private coaching, doing life coaching. Empowerment coaching is what I called it. And a lot of women also transmuting shame into power, taking leaps of faith on the verge of a breakthrough. And through that journey, I think at the max, I had like 12 private clients at once. It booked out really fast. I think our first month in business full time was like a 20K month. It was like, what the heck is happening? I was about to like pee my pants. I was just like, oh my God. Like I used to make less than $20,000 a year, like a couple years earlier. I was like a backpacker yogi eating coconuts because I had the most amount of calories and just sitting at a cafe eating a coconut, for 20 cents. And living the life, so happy, but I was missing that deep fulfillment. I had found flexibility and freedom and lifestyle in my freelance writing, which sometimes made me feel like I was living a double life because I was doing freelance business, markets, finance writing on the side, not making a huge deal of money, but enough to like get by and save some. And I've always had some kind of codes with money that I'm able to circulate it and hold it. And that's something that's been there in my life. But yeah, where was I? I'm like, okay, so that's where I was.
Shoshanna transmission.
I start coaching, private coaching, and from there, honestly, that we can go so many directions, but from there, momentum started to build. I started loving building community spaces. People started asking me for business support, launching their podcast. I started doing some private business mentoring on the side. I realized so much of what holds us back in life is exactly the same thing that holds us back in business. But I absolutely loved working with people who had a vision for a legacy, who like were impacting others, because it felt like a ripple effect. I was like, I can
Yeah.
help this person put their message out in the world. I really work well with heart-led entrepreneurs, people with personal brands that have stories attached to what they're doing, because it's a lot about unlocking your voice, unlocking your voice, building a movement around your work. So I really focused on the movement first, and real connections with people, building community spaces. My Empowered Business Accelerator is my first group program, and from there I probably have 20 different programs at this point. Like, so much fun, and it's just really built and developed and evolved from there.
I love that, because you mentioned that, like, your programs, but for me, the way that I receive your work is very much Shoshanna grows, she feels something, she experiences something, she shares it. And it's like this, we are being taken through your own evolution. As you grow, your community gets to grow. As the community gets to grow, their communities get to grow. And this ripple effect of you are the medicine. How can we understand that what we've got is our own code, our own medicine? And then like you said, being vulnerable, being brave, moving into those spaces, getting support. But the way in which we grow and who we become, and you mentioned this right at the beginning, there's so many different titles you could put on this, but title schmeitel, you are an evolving being. And now we've been through this business, we've been through community, we're now coming up to this gorgeous, sensual woman that is in her prime in this gorgeous, conscious relationship. And it feels to me like the wound is coming full circle from this, I'm going to talk about my genital herpes, to actually, I'm now teaching this sacred, sensual connection to self and to other. Talk to us a bit about that, and like how it feels for you to be coming back to that space.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. For me, it feels so good. It's all related. And that's what I hope at my core for myself, for my clients, is to be artists of our life, which is just to take what life gives us and make it our own. And in that, everything's a relationship. Our art is a relationship. The way you walk, the way that you shower, the way that you are in a romantic partnership, the way that you are with your business. And so art is conscious. Art is like, I see that this is being given to me, and now how can I make it my own? But we can just shower, we can eat, we can relate, and be totally in our subconscious programming. So it takes conscious awareness. But that conscious awareness takes secure attachment, a maturity. And so what I find is that this maturity in womanhood, this maturity in relationship is like the ultimate. That's when we can hold the ebb and the flow. That's when we can hold places of stillness and silence. That's what we can hold our sovereignty. We can hold the frequency in our team, with our clients, with our partner, when things don't go as planned, when there's a reaction, when there's a trigger, and we can leave space for people to rise and meet us. And what I find is there's so many people who boom in this industry, or there's so many people who fall in love, and then it's like, can we hold that?
Yeah.
That's really like where this work is coming and relating. It's like, it's actually connected to the business growth. It's like, how can I be in a secure, sovereign place within myself so that I can continue to make art? Because if I'm constantly triggered, or in emotional reactive states, or stressing, or overwhelmed, or insecure, then I can't be an artist. An artist is like, I pick up the pen and write the end of the story. And so for me, that's where this like the love, relating, sensuality work is really coming into it. It's like, what does it look like in this new space that's not really new and living brave? Like, where else can we infuse our art into?
Mm.
And of course, it comes back to the very essence of the movement, which is like our sensuality, our expression, and the way that we relate with others, because there's so many keys to feminine business growth that are so related to how we are in partnership, so related to how we are in our love. And I think the more that I embody my own feminine leadership, which has been developing over the years, you know, I didn't start, in some ways I did, but I really, really dove deep into that work of like, how do I actually lead this from a space of my feminine essence, which is not all about leaning back. It's about an entirely new strategy, you know, built for women, by women, the way women buy and sell, the way women want to be in relationship, the way women want to create and consume. Like, it's so fun.
Mm.
And that is as naturally transformed my love life and my own sexuality and sensuality. So how could I not? It's kind of like, how could I not share this? And so we'll just see how it develops and
Mm.
comes through. But I find that the more I talk about it, again, like, if you want your clients to ask you other questions, if you want your programs to naturally evolve, start talking about new things on your social media. So I just bring in things that I'm learning. And I find that that naturally has broadened and evolved my high level mentorship spaces, where it's like business strategy, love and relating, family, emotional, inner child, like all kinds of things, because I talk about that on my platforms and I'm open about those things. And for me, that's my favorite, is holistic mentorship. So the more I explore different dimensions of myself, the more I can bring that forward on my platform. Does that mean that every dimension of your growth that you're exploring, you have to do a program on? Absolutely not. But what's really cool is that if you're having a breakthrough, you know, I was just coaching someone on this yesterday. If you're a money coach, you're having a breakthrough around your creativity, it's like speaking about that, speaking about how you see creativity, what creativity means to you. Does that mean you need to have a program on that?
Mm.
Totally could build your product suite like that, but you could just tie that to wealth, or you could just share how you see the world and who you are. And that's a reason your people are going to pick you, because they already know you're a pro and an expert at your money stuff. And
Mhm.
so bringing forward who you are and what you're going through, like for me, nothing's off limits. Talking about the things that make the least amount of sense are the reasons why my clients end up working with me for business growth, because I talk about HSV, I talk about my heartbreak journey. Doesn't mean I need to have a program on those things, although those do develop over time. It's just bringing the full person, especially when you're a mentor and people are working with you in close proximity. That's been a huge key to the wealth, right?
Mm. I love that. I love that. And there's something there that, you know, you touched on this feminine energetics, this feminine way that women are now learning to buy, learning to sell, learning to be in this way that feels good. You know, for a long time, there has been this very high masculine drive around business. And for a while, and maybe still, there's like that icky sort of trajectory from the word business and entrepreneur into where this feminine space is now, that we're using those words, but there's a very, very different energy behind them. There's a very different meaning attached. And we're still sort of
Mm.
learning those meanings and feeling into those meanings. But can you share with us a little bit of your journey from kind of moving, particularly as you said, you were a writer in quite, you know, in a money orientated space, which potentially was masculine space, now into this space of embodied wealth, you know, this new term that a lot of us are using, and starting to understand what that truly means. You know, what is feminine embodied wealth?
Yeah. Well, I love to look at wealth as my experience of my life now, right? It's like, what is my experience of my life now? The depth, the opportunity, the experience, the abundance of feeling in this moment in the now. And sometimes without the money, we're unable to look at true wealth. like the snow outside, this conversation we're having, the ability to have my coffee this morning, like the little things, because we're so focused on getting the thing. What I love, and again, sometimes it has to come through embodied experience of getting the thing and then realizing, like, oh, this is just a cherry on top. This isn't really wealth. This is just a dimension of wealth. This is just a byproduct of wealth. This is just a tool for wealth. I can use money to create more wealth, but money is just this placeholder. Like, it does nothing for me unless I use it for something that brings me real embodied wealth, which is my experience in my life now. And so, of course, you can be wealthier with knowing that money gives you more options in the moment, gives you more opportunities for impact, for treating yourself, your loved ones, for expression, but it's not a placeholder for safety, and it's not a placeholder for value. You are limitless in your value. Your only true finite resource is your time and energy. And I think that if we were all smarter, we would just start pouring so much into our personal growth and development and business growth. It's like money you can make back. What are we doing? Hoarding money, trying to figure it out on our own. And I feel that men actually have this down a lot more than women, because of course we're told not to trust ourselves, especially not with money, and don't trust your desires, which actually investing money and spending money from a place of desire is the most abundant way to go. But it's like, because we often have such a wounded relationship with the masculine, a lot of women are hoarding money and looking to money for safety, trying to build wealth, not seeing what real wealth is, and that money is just a tool for wealth. I think men have this down so well. My partner, he's like, as long as you can make more than you spend, just spend, spend, spend. He's like an entrepreneur, starting all these businesses, like investing in this, this, and this. And it's like, I'm seeing this, like, this is where there's the gap.
Yeah.
This is where there's a gap in our ability to just, and when women are embodied in their feminine, it's like, we are the master circulators of money. We're like, oh yes, that feels good, let's do that. And it's like this, it comes with, you receive it with joy, you give it with joy. And often we receive it with guilt and we give it with shame. And
Wow.
it's like, that's just, it's a hard way to be, rather than, oh my gosh, every time money comes out, can I really see that as something that's coming back tenfold? Can I have gratitude for that? Can I create pathways of prosperity to me? Every part of this journey, I have always focused on money in more than money out. I'm like, sure, if I can spend this, spend this, spend this to help me generate time and energy back and money back, go for it. I'm not going to micromanage this. How can I focus on, are there pathways to me? Am I connecting with people? Is it clear how to work with me? Like, can I receive this with so much joy, with so much pride in who I am, and what I get to represent as a woman with wealth? And that has made all the difference. That's the thing.
I think it's beautiful you just said there about us giving and receiving with the shame and the guilt. I'm like, wow, I think that would really resonate with a lot of women. That we're not clean in our energy around receiving and giving money, and that we see it, as you said, this placeholder for safety, rather than it's actually a placeholder for wealth, which is quite interesting. But bringing us back to Shoshanna, the being of light that you are, you've moved into this space so swiftly as this woman that is heading this movement, holding this beautiful community, and really being a leader of how to understand and cultivate wealth, money for women, particularly this generation of women that are into their own healing, want to, whether it's reparenting or whether it's healing, however we call it, but they want to make an impact on the world because they've made an impact in themselves, and they want to keep healing, but they also want to create an abundant lifestyle. How do you feel being somebody that is now looked upon as a demonstrator for this trailblazing path, this new paradigm of young women entrepreneurs in the healing space?
Oh, it's such an honor and a gift and a privilege. Yeah. And I hope in this journey, that through the connection of the humanness, right? It's like showing all that we've created. And it's amazing. And I wouldn't be where I am without my mentors celebrating things that I was like, you can do that? Like we need to celebrate. We need to share what we've done. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have the goals that I have. I wouldn't have the dreams that I have if other people hadn't shared. But having that bridge and like connection point through, and here's me and my goofy, silly, imperfect self, and here are parts of my journey, all the dark nights of the soul I've been through, all the reasons I thought this was impossible for me, that creates a bridge. And I hope that everyone in my community and following me like truly never makes a mistake of pedestaling anybody. Because first it's the worst thing we can do to someone, because the only way to fall is from very high up and it's painful. And it's like I never want someone to create that separation, because when you start to pedestal, either you create so much distance from it, or there's this thing that happens in envy. The only difference between inspiration and envy is your feeling of closeness and sameness to that person. When you create separation, there's envy, and you actually start to build resentment for the things that you really want, versus that connection, that bridge of, oh, you're just like me. Oh, I'm finding reasons to like you rather than reasons why we're different and not to like you. And that's where true inspiration lies. So I hope that all of us understand, like, can we actually gift ourselves the ability to be inspired by people by finding connection, and sometimes connection through vulnerability, from the people who inspire us. Tell them they inspire us. Like this beautiful series that you're doing. Anyone who's listening, it's like she's doing this for free from the space in her heart and soul to really impact all of you. I It's so easy to give a quick rating or review or tell her that you're listening. Like that really connection, the people who inspire you, and allowing yourself to feel and to create with your community that beautiful space for connection as you thrive and celebrate and share all the beautiful transformations you've had tied to hopefully what you're offering in the world, and making that really clear and easy for people to go on that journey themselves with you.
It's so delicious, isn't it? It kind of brings me into a space of, as we get to close our conversation, and I'm really grateful for you being here. I want to kind of just touch on sisterhood and the way in which you just kind of brought that full circle to when we're able to like each other, when we're able to sit, I call it womb to womb, heart to heart, we're the same. And that removes that envy, that jealousy, that separation. What in your life, or who in your life has held you in that space so that you can find that in yourself and in other women? Where's your sisterhood?
Such a good question. And I think I want to share in this that whew, I have felt a lot of this in my life through a lot of the sisters in my life, whether that's in masterminds or through my mentorship or through friends. But there's a period, and it happens along the journey, where you aren't held in that, and that's not a reason to close. It's a reason to decide who you want to be. I think part of my journey has been learning how to transition relationships with love. And learning, especially as you grow and you thrive and you celebrate, there are so many people who want to grow and thrive and celebrate with you. And there are certain people who aren't quite at a place in their journey that being around someone that happy and that successful and will not spark a lot of pain for them. Like just in the fact that they're not there and constantly questioning if they're enough around you. And so people create space, distance, relationships change. And through that, I've really decided like Living Brave is going to be a space where no matter what season you're in, no matter what evolution and expression that you're in, you're going to be supported. You're going to be loved. Whether I want to dye my hair blonde and get nails and explore luxury in my life or be my hippie backpacker self. Like, there are people who will be so stoked for you and whatever evolution that you're in. And there's a certain level of growth and a certain level of success and a certain level of understanding where that is the truth. But I think people get really burned and turned off and scared that they're going to just lose everyone, because there is a certain phase of growth people are in where they're not able to hold that for you. But when you allow those relationships to take a pause, space, whatever it needs, and you give compassion, you say, I'd rather love you from afar than have a funky, wobbly energy or resent up close. I created so much space in my life, and I've had people come in who are just like soul sisters, you know, who it's like we send each other, like, we're pen pals. We don't need to talk every day.
Yeah.
A lot of the successful people I know, including myself, I'm not texting every day.
Yeah.
I'm not like, just we don't just hang and talk about, you know,
Yeah.
reality TV or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I set a girl date with you. We have a friend date once a month, once a week. And you know, when I'm there, I'm going to be so there with you.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it's going to be every night or we're going to be texting every day. And in fact, maybe we don't respond to each other for a few days a week. This is secure relationship, right? And those are the kinds of friendships I have in my life now, where it's like, it's not the end of the world if we don't get back to each other for a week, we don't see each other for a month, but like, we are cheering each other on every step of the way. And it's like, if we're in the same town at the same time, it's like you can swoop over whenever you want, and that's an amazing feeling. But it takes a patience, and especially when you're growing really fast, I think sometimes there's this fear. Listen, you don't have to do it alone. There's so many spaces that you can join. You know, I always say, like, just claim a seat at the table. It's not lonely at the top. You just have to claim a seat at the table. Are you like willing to do that and decide that you belong and join those spaces? But yeah, it's an interesting game, and it's a beautiful journey of just trusting that, just like we do sometimes in love, like when you really feel that, gosh, one day I'm going to be waking up every day next to the person that I love, like my king is on the way, you know, all of those beautiful things that we tell ourselves that you really feel in your heart, like it feels perfect. I feel like I have so many of my clients feel that. Sometimes we don't do that with our community. Like, gosh, my clients, but also my son, my sister. Like, maybe just having a friend who's really like people. And that was a huge game changer for me years ago. And I've started to fill out that circle, and it's been quite wonderful.
Oh, how delicious. There's just so many other places we could go with this. Oh, I
So
just
good.
it is good. It's beautiful, and I want everyone to be able to really kind of you've dropped a lot of diamonds there. I think this is one that we get to watch a couple of times, you know, to really listen to the different stages of this journey and the different parts of the self-realization and the next abundant unfolding as you kind of walked through your own living brave life, from those wounds to that wisdom and now into that wealth that is impacting other people to be their own medicine too. And I'd love it if you leave us with something that is Shoshanna's medicine, so that we can open our own. What have you got to leave our audience with under the banner of You Are the Medicine?
What's coming through for me today is just remembering that you always have an opportunity to be the artist of your own life and to really test yourself. Like, make it a game with how much fun you can have, how present you can be, how much love you can give, how much you can surprise yourself and others with how you navigate your life today. Like, that's medicine. Your joy is enough. Your dancing for no reason in public is enough. Like, life is so serious. Things are hard, you know, there are painful things. If you can just be a source of joy, relaxed energy when things aren't going as planned, it's medicine for you, it's medicine for the world. And you truly get to wake up. I wake up every day and ask my partner, you can do this in the mirror, you can do this with your pet, you can do this with a friend. And I say, one of us says, for what? And sometimes we say like the best travel day of our lives, the best day of our lives, the best snow day of our lives, like whatever it is, the best day of your life. And does that mean it's going to be the absolute best day of your life? No, it just means the best iteration of today,
Yeah.
right? Like to have that. Yeah, and I got that from like my older sister used to say that when she was younger. She'd say, let's just have the best day ever, right? It's like a little kid energy. And if you can bring that into your day, like when nothing goes as planned, you're like, I want to be the coolest person, the most fun person to hang out with when nothing goes as planned. What would that look like? Because all I've got is me and me, so I might as well be like, oh, I would totally invite me to, when my flight is canceled 5 hours, I want to just be the best person to hang out with at the airport today. Who would that be? And you just decide to be the artist of your life. Like that's healing, that's medicine. And it's so much permission for everyone around you and just makes life so much better. And you're magnetic when you do this. So
You are super magnetic when you do that. Oh my gosh. Shoshanna, thank you so much for your wisdom and for your channeling. You can feel it when it's coming through, this heart, beautiful voice. And, we didn't go into it too deeply, but you did mention it, like your voice. Your voice is incredibly important, giving voice to your vulnerability. And I love that you've shared this incredible journey and that you have this beautiful community. Where can people find you if we haven't mentioned it enough already? Tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, it's so fun how we live out our work, right? It's like, of course, I'm talking more about voice, and I'm like going to launch my voice program today.
Yeah,
I'm like, I have like 20 different programs, and this is like, it's called Voice. It's so great. But
perfect.
I hang out a lot on Instagram. It's at Shoshanna with two N's _ Raven. I also have my podcast, Living Brave Podcast. And I have my Facebook community. It's free, the Living Brave community. So I would just love to hear. And again, reach out to Mary Kate, like give her some love. Tell her you're listening. Screenshot the episode, tag us, reach out to us, whether it's my team that responds or me. I love being in my DMs sometimes. I will see it. And it truly means the world to me.
Mm,
So thank you. Thank you for listening, for staying through. I would love to learn about you. I'm excited for you and all that's to come and for us. And I'm so grateful to be able to collaborate with you. Thank you so much for having me on your show, on your series.
thank you. So much love. You are the medicine. Shoshanna Raven.